Ethan Carter stood in the rain outside his own townhouse, rehearsing a lie that would detonate his marriage in less than 5 minutes. He wasn't broke. He wasn't fired. But he was done pretending not to see the truth hiding behind his wife's perfect smile. What she didn't know was that every word, every whisper, every dollar sign she'd secretly calculated, he had it all. Recorded, documented, ready. And the moment he said, "I got fired today," would be the moment everything unraveled. Stay with me, because what she says next will make your heart race. This isn't just betrayal, it's strategy, and Ethan's about to flip the script. The sky over Raleigh was gray when Ethan Carter pulled up outside his own townhouse, the windshield streaked with this kind of southern drizzle that made everything feel heavy. He sat in the driver's seat, engine running, staring at the narrow brick steps that led to his front door. He rehearsed the lie in his head one more time. "Lauren, I got fired today." In 5 words, simple enough, but they weren't true, because Ethan wasn't fired. Far from it. He was still the marketing director of CarterMed, a company he quietly co-founded under another name. One of several ventures that had grown his fortune to well over $8 million. No one at his office even knew he lived like this, in a modest 2-bedroom townhouse with his yoga-teaching wife, who thought he was a mid-level executive making $92K a year. No one knew because Ethan didn't want them to. Until now. He cut the ignition, slipped his phone into his jacket pocket, already recording, and stepped into the drizzle. Inside, the house was warm, dimly lit, and smelled faintly of eucalyptus. Lauren was curled on the couch, scrolling on her laptop, the sleeves of her yoga hoodie bunched at her elbows. When she looked up and saw him, her expression flickered, briefly from surprise to something colder before smoothing into a practiced smile. "You're home early," she said. The exact same words she'd said 2 weeks ago, when he'd come home midday with a migraine and overheard her telling her best friend Brooke that once they hit the 5-year mark, the alimony would double. "My lawyer said that's when it gets real," she'd whispered. She hadn't known he was standing in the hallway, motionless, heart pounding. That moment changed everything. Now she was looking at him with those same fake, concerned eyes. Ethan dropped his briefcase with a heavy thud. "We need to talk," he said. She closed the laptop, eyes narrowing just slightly. "What happened?" He took a long breath. "I got fired." Silence. Not gasping, not horror, just a strange stillness. Then her voice an octave too high. You what? But how? Why?" "They cut the department. Budget issues, effective immediately." "I'm out." He watched her carefully, watched the way her fingers clenched around the blanket, watched how her pupils dilated, not with grief but calculation. "That's awful," she said slowly. "I mean, what are we going to do?" Ethan gave a rehearsed sigh, hand to his forehead. "We'll have to make changes, sell the townhouse, tap into my investment account just to stay afloat for a few months." And there it was. Panic. Lauren stood up so quickly the blanket slid to the floor. I need a minute. I'm going to call Brooke. I need to process this." "Of course," Ethan said, voice calm. "I'll be in the study." She rushed upstairs, and 30 seconds later, Ethan followed, footsteps soft on the carpet, phone still recording. He stopped just outside their bedroom door. Through the thin wall, her voice came through in a frantic whisper. "Brooke, it's bad. He just told me he got fired. No, I'm serious. I know this ruins everything. If he's not working, I get alimony based on unemployment income. Not the 92 grand. I could end up with nothing." There was a pause, then more hissing. "We're still 7 months from the 5-year mark." "7? I can't wait that long if he's jobless. And what if he never bounces back? What if he gets some $60,000 job and that's all I get alimony from?" Another pause. "No, I can't cut my losses now. That would be a total waste. We planned this. 5 years, split the investment account, take half the 401k, collect support for 3 years. That's 200 grand, easy." Ethan stood frozen, listening to the woman he married reduce their relationship to dollar amounts, like she was reading off a spreadsheet. And then she said the one thing he hadn't let himself believe, until now. I stopped loving him over a year ago, maybe longer. He's just boring, predictable. He comes home, eats dinner, watches the same shows, falls asleep by 10 like he's 60. I'm 31. I'm not wasting the rest of my life like this. A hollow, guttural chill settled in Ethan's chest. He stepped back, silent, and returned to the study. The mask was slipping off her face, revealing someone he didn't recognize. Or maybe someone who had always been there. He ended the recording, called his attorney, Rebecca Hale. I got it, he told her. All of it. She laid it out word for word. Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Then, Ethan, that's better than anything we could have hoped for. This is going to change everything. And it would. Because now Ethan wasn't just a man who suspected his wife didn't love him. Now he had proof that she stayed for one reason only, to cash out. And she had no idea the game had already begun. That night, Lauren came downstairs with her face composed in perfect concern. She said the words she thought he needed to hear. We're a team, right? For better or worse. And Ethan, who used to believe in vows, just nodded, playing his part. But in his mind, something had already snapped. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. It was about strategy, and he was done playing fair. Would you have told her right away? Or stayed silent to gather proof? The next morning, Ethan woke before sunrise. The house was silent, except for the soft hum of the fridge and the occasional creak of the townhouse settling. He moved quietly, slipping on a jacket, grabbing his keys and the folder Rebecca had prepared for him. By 9 a.m., he was sitting in his bank's private office, signing papers to move half the funds from their joint account into an individual account and under his name. Exactly half, down to the penny. Nothing shady, nothing illegal, just protection. Then he changed the beneficiary of his 401k and life insurance, removing Lauren and replacing her with his mother. It felt cold but necessary. Lauren had already shown her hand. Now it was his turn to play smarter. Later that afternoon, Ethan met Rebecca in her downtown office to sign the divorce petition. We're filing today, she told him. She'll be served by Thursday. You've got 2 days to prepare for whatever storm follows. Ethan nodded. I'm ready. But inside, he wasn't sure he was. Not for the confrontation, not for the fallout, not for the moment he'd have to look her in the eyes and tell her he knew everything. Thursday came fast. At 2:47 p.m., while Ethan was at work at his real office, where of course he'd never been fired, his phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. She's been served. He stared at the message for a long moment, the words sinking in like a slow tide. 15 minutes later, his phone rang. Lauren's name lit up the screen. He let it ring 4 times before answering. Hello? Her voice was sharp, shaking with fury. What the hell is this, Ethan? I just got divorce papers. What is going on? He leaned back in his chair. I think the papers explain everything pretty clearly. You can't just, Ethan, you were fired 2 days ago and now you're divorcing me? What the hell happened to talking? To working through things? I wasn't fired, he said flatly. That was a lie. Silence. What? She breathed. You lied to me? It was a test, Lauren, and you failed. Spectacularly. I don't understand. You do, he said. You understand exactly. I know about the call with Brooke. I know you've been waiting for the 5-year mark. I know you calculated how much you'd get from my accounts. I know you stopped loving me and stayed only for the money. She didn't deny it. Instead, she asked, how do you know all that? He let the pause hang in the air, then said simply, I recorded it. When she spoke again, her voice was a whisper, stunned and venomous. You were listening? You set me up? I protected myself, he corrected. You were playing a game. You just didn't realize I knew the rules. You manipulative bastard, she snapped. Says the woman who turned our marriage into a financial strategy. She hung up, and Ethan sat there, breathing slowly, staring out the window as Raleigh traffic passed below like nothing had changed. But everything had. That night, Lauren didn't come home. She texted that she was staying at Brooks to process everything. He didn't reply. The next day, Rebecca called with an update. Her lawyer already reached out. They want to negotiate. What's the offer? Ethan asked. 2 years of alimony at $1,500 a month, plus $30,000 as a settlement. He laughed. She still thinks she's entitled to something. She's not, Rebecca agreed, and we're rejecting the offer. But here's the twist. Her lawyer said she's struggling. Apparently, reality is setting in. She can't afford the townhouse without your income. Yoga pays her maybe $2,000 a month, and that's being generous. Ethan should have felt satisfied. Instead, he just felt tired. He moved into a furnished one-bedroom apartment on the other side of Raleigh. Sleek, clean, quiet. It wasn't home, not yet, but it was his. Every day he went to work, poured himself into a new healthcare campaign. Rebecca was right, Lauren had been blindsided, but she wasn't the only one reeling. 3 weeks after the papers were served, an unexpected call came from an unknown number. Against his better judgment, Ethan answered. "Ethan, it's Brooke Sanders, Lauren's friend." He stood still in the kitchen, stunned. "What do you want?" "I need to talk. Not for Lauren, for me. Can we meet?" Something in her voice sounded broken. They met at a quiet cafe downtown, far from where he and Lauren used to go. Brooke looked rough, hollow. Her voice trembled. "I need to apologize," she said, "for my part in all of this." Ethan crossed his arms. "Go on." "She told you she stopped loving you a year ago. That's not the whole truth. She was happy, Ethan, but I poisoned her." He blinked. "You what?" "I got divorced 2 years ago. Ugly divorce. But I walked away with a big settlement. Over $100,000. And I told Lauren about it, bragged about it even. Made it sound like that was the only good thing to come out of 7 miserable years." She rubbed her eyes, exhausted. "I encouraged her. Told her to wait for 5 years, that it was smart. Strategic. I didn't mean to turn her into a person who stayed married just to cash out. But I did." Ethan felt something cold settle in his chest. "She's an adult," he said. "She made her own choices." "I know, and she's paying for them, but you need to know, she wasn't always like this. I made her believe that love was leverage, that marriage was just investment timing." Ethan stared at him. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I think she's losing herself, and because I helped destroy something that might have been real. I'm not asking you to forgive her, I just needed you to know she didn't start out this way." He didn't reply, just sat with it. Everything Brooke said was probably true, but it didn't change the fact that Lauren had taken the advice and used it like a blueprint. That night, Ethan scrolled through old photos, ones he hadn't looked at in months. Pictures of Lauren laughing, holding his hand, looking at him like he was her whole world. Was that ever real? Or had she always just been waiting for the payout? 3 more weeks passed, and Ethan thought the storm had finally passed. Lauren hadn't contacted him again. Her lawyer had gone silent. Rebecca said it was just a matter of time before someone caved. Then, on a rainy Tuesday morning, Ethan's phone rang. It was Rebecca. "She signed the settlement," she said. "No alimony, split assets exactly as we proposed. Her attorneys sent it over with a personal note attached." "Want to see it?" Ethan hesitated. "If it's going to derail my peace, I'd rather not." "I think you should read it," Rebecca replied. "It's handwritten." He opened the scanned image on his laptop later that night. Lauren's handwriting was familiar, looping and careful, almost innocent looking. "Ethan, you were right. I stayed too long, for the wrong reasons. I let someone else's bitterness change the way I saw you, saw us, saw myself. I stopped being a wife and started acting like a strategist. Somewhere along the line, I convinced myself it was practical, not cruel. But it was cruel. You didn't deserve to be tested like that. You deserved love that wasn't measured by timing or numbers. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking you to believe that once, it was real. I hope you find someone who never makes you doubt that again." Lauren Ethan sat with the letter open in front of him for a long time. It didn't undo anything. It didn't change the lies, the manipulation, the fact that she had stayed married just long enough to cash out. But it did make one thing undeniable. Somewhere in the beginning, she had loved him. Maybe not enough, maybe not in the right way, but enough that losing it had broken something inside her too. The divorce was finalized 2 weeks later. No court hearing, no dramatic courtroom scene, just a file stamped by a judge, quietly ending what had once felt permanent. Ethan was officially single, officially free, but he didn't feel victorious. He just felt still. He focused on rebuilding. Work was steady. He threw himself into the new campaign and earned a quiet promotion to VP of Strategy. He moved into a better apartment, bought furniture that didn't carry memories, started going to the gym again. It was like waking up from a long, exhausting dream. Then came the unexpected twist. Jessica Miller, Brooke's ex-husband's former paralegal, reached out to Rebecca. She was being investigated for her own divorce strategy. Her ex had discovered text messages between her and Brooke, ones that revealed she had used the exact same 5-year tactic in her own case. Now he was seeking to reopen their settlement, and Lauren's name was coming up. Brooke's too. It was unraveling into something far bigger. Rebecca asked Ethan if he'd be willing to testify if needed. He agreed on one condition, that Lauren not be dragged through it unnecessarily. Whatever had happened between them, it didn't need to become tabloid fodder. 2 days later, Lauren contacted him, not to fight, to thank him. They met for coffee, awkward and quiet. She looked thinner but steadier. She told him she was in therapy now. She talked about growing up with parents who fought over money, how that shaped her obsession with financial security, how she'd mistaken fear for practicality, control for power. Then she did something unexpected. She offered to write a formal statement for Jessica's case, one that clarified that the divorce plan had been her choice, not Jessica's manipulation. She took responsibility. Ethan watched her as she spoke. For the first time in a long time, she didn't look like someone playing a role. She looked like someone facing herself. Afterwards, Lauren stood to leave but hesitated. "I know I said it in the letter, but I want to say it here. I'm sorry, not just for what I did to you, but for who I became. You didn't deserve that version of me." Ethan nodded. "No, I didn't. I hope one day someone gives me the chance to become someone better." "I hope so too," he said quietly. "But that won't be me." She smiled sadly. "I know." And then she walked away. 3 months later, Ethan was at his best friend Marcus's wedding. He was drinking a whiskey neat and laughing at an old college memory when someone tapped his shoulder. "Hey, I'm Emily," she said, "cousin of the bride, physical therapist. I think I just watched you make that best man speech land better than the vows." He laughed. "That wasn't hard. The vows were shaky at best." They talked for hours that night. She didn't ask what he did. She didn't ask how much he made. She just wanted to know what book he was reading and whether he liked dogs or cats more. She had warm eyes and a quick sense of humor. When she smiled, it wasn't polished or performative. It was real. Ethan didn't feel fireworks or fate. He felt calm, curious, interested. And after everything he'd been through, that felt like the right kind of beginning. 6 months after the divorce, Ethan no longer checked Lauren's social media. He no longer replayed her words in his head. He'd learned the hardest lesson a man can learn. Sometimes the person you trust most is the one who quietly plans your downfall. But he'd also learned something even more important. You don't need revenge to win. You just need clarity, peace, and the courage to walk away before bitterness becomes your story. Now he was writing a new one. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you still cared about, just to protect your peace? Do you think Ethan made the right decision when he confronted Lauren? Comment 100 below. If you felt this story hit somewhere real, and let me know what country you were watching from. If this story made you feel something, share it with someone who needs to hear it today.